Andrew, hey,
Hey,
how's it going?
it's great, man. Just banging out some interviews. Enjoying December. Finish the show, feeling good.
What was it like to film the show this past season?
Oh, it was incredible. And obviously we had a lot of COVID protocols, but the show and the producers went above and beyond to make us feel safe. There were so many COVID protocols. We were tested multiple times a week. We had a COVID leader who made sure we were following all the measures and everything we had to do. The crews were put in their pods, and we didn't see a lot of crew a lot of the time. And it felt really safe. But because we knew we were in a pandemic, because we hadn't seen each other in a year, and because we knew how much the fans wanted it, how much they really needed the show right now, how much the world needed it, we knew how much was at stake. And so we put so much love and care and hard work into this season. And we were laser focused to finish, to do the work well, to be excellent, and to have this be one of our best seasons.
Cool. So, one of the things that's really interesting to me is I go back and I watch sort of the first season, the first couple of episodes, and you've come a long way. Kimchi's grown up a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of unfocused at the beginning, but you've really taken him in such an incredible arc, incredible journey. How do you feel like the character's grown? How do you feel like you've grown along with the character?
Well, I think the growth of Kimchi is one of the things I'm most proud of the entire show, because I think from the beginning I never played him as the best friend. I never played him as the sidekick, and I've gotten referenced that a lot. Oh, he's the best friend. I'm like, not my world. My world, it shows me. My world, I'm the star. And I think having that mentality has given him a lot of life outside of being a friend. You know, and he's become someone that people connect to and cheer on and relate to. And we saw him in season 1 and 2, a bit of a slacker, not really sure what to do. Season 3, he's the assistant manager, he wants more. Season 4, he's dating someone, he's a long-term relationship, he's dealing with issues with his father, his lack of father, Appa. And in this season in particular, we're seeing him deal with the core of like him feeling like he was alone growing up. His relationship with Appa, which is also a triangle with Jung, um, his long-term relationship with the girlfriend. And then we're seeing some fun scenarios like a high school reunion, and I love it. And we're just seeing someone that is relatable in their 20s. Often in our 20s, we start asking those questions. And for me, it was like it felt so real. It felt like I went through a lot of this in my 20s, and I still go through a lot of this. And I get asked a lot, like, what's your similarities to your character Kimchi? I'm a father of two. So I think I'm a bit more of a reserved Kimchi. Kimchi's a bit more outgoing. He's a bit more in your face. But I relate a lot to him. And these are the things I went through at this age.
How did you enjoy the table read when you were pairing up with fresh off the boat and you were doing the table read with them?
Yeah, that was really fun. And it was really fun that, like, in this unique time we could do something so engaging for fans. I think the most fun I had was interviewing the casts.
Mm.
And so, like, a big chunk of my career was like interviewing, hosting events. And so I've had the privilege of interviewing some amazing people these past few years. I interviewed the cast of the Goonies. I interviewed the cast of Back to the Future as a group, and then solo interviews. I've interviewed Nathan Fillion. I interviewed Alec Baldwin last year. So interviewing is like a forte of mine. It's something I really enjoy doing. So sitting down with the cast of Fresh Off the Boat and asking people questions, and then having Constance at the end say, "Good questions." And she's a bit of a tough cookie. Like, I've chatted with her a couple times, and she's a bit of a tough cookie. And for her to say "good questions" made me feel really proud. And so it was really nice to be able to sit in this unique time, bring some smiles to people's faces, and interview the cast of two very popular comedies featuring all Asian casts, which is incredible.
And then what about in your role as ambassador? Do you think of it, funny, serious, sort of underneath it, a little both?
While with my role in ambassador, I take it seriously, and obviously you get Andrew Phung, and
Yeah.
I'm a funny guy, and I got that energy, and I got those comedic chops. But when I take on a role as an ambassador, and whether it be for the Academy, and their equity and inclusion fund, or whether it be for a nonprofit or a charity, I take it very seriously, because I am an actor who specializes in comedy. but I am a human. I am a citizen. I am a father. I'm a husband. And so when I get behind a cause, I want that cause to succeed. And I get behind that cause because I believe in it. If I didn't believe in it, it would be phony. It would be inauthentic. I only like to support things where I feel like it's authentic to me. And so I am very serious about it. And I try to, when I back something, I try to bring myself to it. So I always offer up my time, and my abilities. And I'm so happy that, in my life prior to the arts, I was the nonprofit manager. So I've sat on committees and boards, and I've been able to have developed those other skills. So I take it very seriously, but at the same
Mhm.
time, it's Andrew Phung. So
Yeah.
when I show up, I'm there to lighten the mood, and hopefully my comedy is what can propel some of these causes going forward.
Mm. How does the show, how does Kim's reflect sort of your beliefs and who you are? And how is it, how have you felt like it's enhanced in that way?
Well, the behind the scenes of Kim's, like, it really reflects me because this was a fringe festival show.
Mm.
This was a play Ins Choi wrote, directed it into the fringe, put it up himself. And so he's built this from the ground up. My improv career was built on doing improv every Friday and Saturday at the Loose Moose Theater in Inglewood, and doing shows for 10 or 20 people and building that up to 200 people and then 2,000 people. And so the show was built from the ground up, and that's been my whole career, because my whole career was like, oh, Andrew, you're an Asian actor, that's not going to make it. You're an Asian comedian, that doesn't really go hand in hand. And so that the show past really relates to me. And then the show as a whole tells a story of an immigrant family with a small business and them just trying to live their life as a family. I know that world. My mom owned a flower shop. My father owned a metal fabrication shop that I worked at. I worked at both places, actually. But I worked at the metal shop in particular, and knowing that business, and then having my father say, "You're going to inherit this business," for me to be like, I'm not really sure I want to inherit this business. And so I know that world. And though it wasn't a convenience store, I've lived a lot of this. And it connects to me because I know this story, and I know how important this story is for so many Canadians and so many people around the world. And this story has evolved into other things of giving opportunities for actors who just were trying to get that opportunity.
Mm.
Myself, like, that's me, and
Mm.
Simu and Andrea. And so this show as a whole reflects the Canadian dream, and I am a product of the Canadian dream. My parents are a product of the Canadian dream. They came to Canada, and Canada accepted them. And they were able to raise me and give me all the opportunities they were unable to have. And then I now get to raise my kids. At the heart of this show is family. At the heart of this show is an imperfect family. At the
Mm.
heart of this show is people's desires to grow and to be better and to live a life that they love with the people they love. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that relates to me and so many people around the world.
Great. One of the things that I think is so great about the show too is the moments. There's so many moments within the show, smaller moments, sometimes bigger moments, but it breathes. What were some of
Mhm.
your favorites? What do you think is sort of like a touchstone moment on the show that really meant something?
Oh, well, I think season 1 and 2, I think season 1 as a whole is like a whole season of moments. And I think
Mm.
that was such a special season for Canadian television and for this show, because I think it's like the season that hooked everybody in. And every season since has tried to build on an element of that. I think season 5 is a really good culmination of all the great things of this show. It's all the great things packed into one. It's the heart, a lot of heart. It's the serious moments. It's the vulnerable moments. It's also the funny moments, kind of wrapped all into one. And I think we did some of our best work this season. In season 1, like, I could name so many. Hapkido. I love
Mm.
when Appa says, when Janet says, good luck, Appa. And Appa says, goodbye, Janet. Like, I
Mm.
love moments like that. Season 2, when Appa yells at sorry, in season 2 when Appa yells at Raj, "You don't deserve her, she's the most talented, most special," you
Mm.
know. um uh it's season 3 where Amma is Kimchi's emergency contact, and she's reluctant, and at the end she's like, no, maybe put me down as well. It's like, that's a bond there. Every season there's something. But I think for me, it's my favorite has always been my scenes with Paul, and
Mm.
because Kimchi didn't have a father, and I knew that going into the show, so I played every scene that way. knowing that he looked up to this man, he looked up to Appa as his Appa, you know, and that's really special to me. And I think this season in particular, we get to really elaborate on that and really explore that world of Kimchi um, not having a father,
Mm.
and that's really special to me.
You know, before I had spoken with you before I'd met you, Paul was actually the first person who told me about you. He told me what to
Oh,
expect.
yeah.
So I thought that was really awesome. And you know, what does it mean to work with him?
Well, I remember when I auditioned for the show, like I felt like we connected right away. And then he found me after the audition and he's like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm Andrew. I'm from Calgary." And he's like, "Wait, you're from Calgary? Like you're an actor from Calgary?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I'm from Calgary." And I knew right then and there was this bond, you know, and him and I have traveled together. We have done so many shows together and we've had scenes together. And he's my best friend. He's someone I look up to greatly. I look up to him as a father, but also as a brother and a friend. Um, and his success has meant so much to me. And every minute I get to play with him, I'm inspired and I'm made a better performer. Um, and just like the level we've been able to connect. And then I found this out. This was wild.
Mm.
We were in a car to the airport one day, and we were just talking about Calgary because he was from there. He moved away in the 90s. And I told him, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I worked at a fish and chips restaurant called Captain Scott's." And he's like, What?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wait, my family's fish and chips restaurant was called Captain Scott's." And I'm like, "Well, where was yours?" And he told me. I'm like, "Well, mine was in Castle Ridge, Northeast." He's like, "Wait, that's like my cousin's." And I'm like, "What?" And so I worked at Captain Scott's Fish and Chips. His family owned a Captain Scott's Fish and Chips, and the one I worked at, Una and Gil, were his cousins. And so we've been in this world together since I was like 15 years old. You know, he's been 1 degree away, just kind of hovering. And so we thought it was so special that like the world brought us together after all these years. And it's been the best working with him, and seeing him on The Mandalorian
Mhm.
made me cry. And I cry whenever I talk about it. I'm so proud of him. Yeah, I'm so proud that we've been able to have this bond, and that it makes me so happy that he was able to tell you about who I was and be excited about it.
Yeah, he said you're gonna love him, and so far, I mean, it's been great. Um, so on a completely different note, do you see Kimchi? You know, he likes his sneakers too. Is he a sneakerhead like you? Does he like different shoes than you do?
He's a sneakerhead like me, and they wrote that into the show based on kind of my character and I think some of the things I were talking about on set and all the shoes I was always bringing into the studio. And I think the writers have done such a great job of pulling those little elements they see of kimchi in the world. It's sort of seeing elements of Andrew and then pulling them into
Mhm.
kimchi, but then also adding things that are like opposite of me, things that I wouldn't do.
Mm.
And this season in particular, they were really nice about asking the cast like for some ideas. And I'm really happy I pitched a bunch of ideas, and two of the ideas I felt most strongly about made it into the show.
Mm.
And I think by having that relationship with the actors, you really create a show that is genuine, that's heartfelt, and that's real to the people
Mm.
that are playing these characters. Because when I'm out in the street, people are rolling down windows, "Yo, kimchi, yo,
Mhm.
kimchi." You know, I live that guy, and so I feel that like I have a perspective on that character, and it feels really nice when you're able to bring those ideas to the show you love.
Right. That is kind of my roundabout way too of saying, tell me about the shoes.
Oh, the
I see
shoes.
this line of shoes behind you. What's the pair that means the most to you? What pair do you treasure the most?
Well, I think that's the tricky part because like every shoe means something to me, you know. And I've
Mm.
been over the years I've gotten actually rid of a lot of shoes because there's just like too many, and now I try to keep shoes that I love. And obviously someone would be like, "Well, Andrew, this many shoes is unhealthy." Yeah, of course it's unhealthy. No one needs as many pairs of shoes, but I love them. But I will say this pair of shoes is particularly special because this is the pair I booked Kim's Convenience in. I wore these shoes to my two auditions, one in Vancouver, one in Toronto, and this shoe will forever hold a special place in my heart because they are my Kim's Convenience shoes.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Every shoe kind of has a story, and like I keep track. Like I remember when I do improv shows, I remember what shoes have good shows and bad shows. Good show, you stay in the rotation. Bad show, you become only on the street, you know, with like for daily wear. And I remember I was doing a show with my improv partner years ago in Edmonton, and she was a bit nervous. It was a packed house. And I looked at her. I'm like, Renee, you see these shoes? They've never had a bad show. And we went out there, crushed it, get backstage, and I look at her. I'm like, told you. And there's something about the sneakers, and it relates to like Jason Sudeikis, who's in a
Yeah.
very funny show Ted Lasso talked about. He's a sneakerhead, and he talked about wearing new shoes and getting out of your head. You know, just like living in your body. So I wear fresh kicks to just like get out of my head and just like let it live in my body. And when my feet feel fresh, I feel fresh.
If you were a shoe, or if you were
Yeah.
even a shoe designer, what do you think? What do you think it would be like?
Well, if I was a shoe, I'd probably be like a Jordan 1. I
Mm,
love the Jordan 1. If I was a shoe designer, I feel like that would be such a hard job, because like there's so many things you have to consider. I feel like people who design shoes are like geniuses because it's like works of art, right? Balancing all those things like the cushioning and the sole and the requirements of the person wearing them. I don't know if I would be good at it. I just love appreciating it, you know? And
mhm.
it's like people who, you know, I appreciate other artists that I know I couldn't do, and then they say but I couldn't do what you do, Andrew. And I think that's what's great about art as a whole. Like we find the things we're good at, we find our passions. And I've seen you, and your passion is interviewing, and your passion is like having conversations with people, and you're so good at it. And so we find what we're good at and we follow those paths. And so that's why for me, like um looking back and opening doors for other artists is so important, because I've seen so many talented artists give up because they hit a barrier or a wall, and they no longer pursue their careers, you
Mm.
know. And I don't want anyone to not be able to do that. So I just appreciate shoes for what they are, beautiful pieces of art.
Well, that's a very kind thing to say overall. Very nice. I just want to say maybe the shoes, they feel it's a good fit, you know? If
Yeah,
it feels good, if the fit is there, right? If the shoe fits, wear it. So maybe that's it for you a little bit.
I think so. And that was the arts. Like for a long time, when I was working in the nonprofit sector, I was like I was resistant to pursuing a career in the arts. I was resistant to acting full time because I was so worried that I couldn't do it. But at the same time, I felt like I was getting so good at it. I felt
Mm.
like my comedy career was so strong, and I was like getting so much good recognition doing it. And like it was so tough. And so if the shoe fits, and that's a great analogy for anything we do in life, if the shoe fits, let's just embrace it, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
As always, man, honestly, it doesn't feel like the season kickoff or the
Right.
CSAs until I get a chance to talk to you, man. Thank you for
Hey,
always making
just
time for us.
yeah, just like two bros chatting, you know?
Of course, yeah. Feels like the most normal thing we've done all year.
It really does.
Yeah,
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 really does feel like that in a
yeah.
stranger. Thank you so much.